Yes, Professor Nero has put the answer in the chat, and Tony, you have a good idea too.
Mm-hmm.
That means I'll stop talking eventually, and then you can talk. So I'm going to do that now.
As long as we're here and speaking about metaphors, what about this one? What about this one? Gentlemen, what do you think? What does that mean, I'm all thumbs? Anton, Vlad, what do you think? What do you think it means? I'm all thumbs. And what is the Russian, Vlad?
I meant Russian, I'm all ears. It sounds pretty close. Во все уши, по уши.
Well, I'm all thumbs. If you approve is thumbs up. Yes, внимание.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Так. Большой палец вверх.
Facebook. Right.
This week in the U.S., a famous film critic, Roger Ebert, died. And he had a TV show for a long time with his colleague Gene Siskel, and they talked about films every week, and at the end they would vote on the films, and it would be thumbs up or thumbs down.
Or thumbs down.
Mm-hmm. And quite often there was one of each.
One of each. So what do you think? What do you think on all thumbs mean? And I'll tell you, it does not mean everybody approves. I'm all thumbs. I'm all thumbs.
Well, it doesn't mean that everybody approves, but you do so.
I'm all thumbs means that a person is very clumsy.
Clumsy.
Very clumsy, that he can't do. He's uncoordinated.
Oh, okay, I see.
You see? Because your dexterity is in your fingers.
Oh.
If you say I'm all thumbs, it means that you're like I'm all thumbs. If you keep dropping something, you're all thumbs.
I'll keep this in mind. Thank you.
It is not so obvious like in all ears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we've been joined by Dima. Dima, good morning to you.
Oh, can you hear me?
We hear you. Yes, we're all ears. We're all ears. That's good.
Dima, we've just been talking about what I'm all ears means.
Oh,
And that is,
sorry.
we have just been talking about what it means to say, I'm all ears. And that's the expression that Professor Lero just used. It means you have my attention, I'm waiting to listen to you. So, who would like to start us off? Does anyone have anything to upload or to point us to that you've prepared in order to talk about the improvements or changes you'd like to see in the Russian educational system? Tony, do you have, did you prepare a presentation to talk about this?
It's not exactly a presentation. I wrote a post in my blog, and I may discuss it to you if you have read it. Otherwise, we can discuss it right now. In my current post, I tried to show problems that we face right now in nowadays with the educational system in our country and what is going on.
And so, go ahead. Tell us your take on it.
Just a moment. Yeah. Well, actually, we have two problems right now, two significant problems. One of them is funny educational policy, government educational policy. The thing is that they doesn't want to fund schools, they doesn't want to fund the universities, and they suppose that these facilities have to self-financing themselves. So that means that the education will be only commercial. Yes. And the second problem.
Yes. That's a huge problem in the U.S. as well.
Well,
it's different.
Well, maybe different somehow. And the second problem is, we all know about that, is YGE, or that in English it would be Unified State Exam. It's our final, and in conception it was actually dragged from the West to decrease the level of corruption, and also to increase the chances of successful applyment to the universities by those who can afford it, for example, from those who are from the countryside, for example, or those who live away from the cities somehow like that. Well, it was made for a good purpose, but today it's a natural monster, because it doesn't really let students express the real thoughts. In my blog, I wrote, just a moment. In fact, it is just tests. But the thing is, the teacher doesn't teach kids how to read or how to express their own thoughts. I was taught how to choose the correct answer in tests and how to write a sentence composition. Can you imagine that you are passing a Russian language exam in test form? Because it is really a test, and you have to pass anything with the test. Physics, art, literature, English, everything with the test. With with only small amount of somehow creative tasks. Well, the creative tasks, I mean compositions, which are simple, just like that. And what is more, YGE doesn't follow the original aim it was made for, because it doesn't really help the students to apply to the university and continue to educate. And there is a great amount of corruption, even more than before, what is more ironically. And somehow that's it. Well, I also wrote 5 things that we have to change in our educational system. Should I say them aloud?
Oh, yes.
Could you talk maybe a little bit about the corruption piece? That might be, if you had an example, that might help us understand it.
About corruption, Actually, news about corruption are coming with the exams themselves when the EGA is coming. It is also coming in the May and in June, mostly in June. I passed it last year. I was lucky guy, let's say. The corruption thing. Well, you know how the exams are. And sometimes people are just paying to the teachers or to the students that they are coming they're coming to the exam. The students coming to the exam with the school student's ID documents, and they are writing for them an exam for a significant amount of money. Or they also may pay to the teachers, and they'll just pass the test for the students. That's just incredible, but it is so. So that's why EGA is somehow a nightmare for any school student. We also trying somehow to increase the safety of the procedure, where I heard about jamming devices on the point of the exam, to not allow the students to go to the internet, and yeah. And I also heard about well, it's not taxes. It's just well, if you are breaking the rules, you have to pay a lot of money, somewhere around from 30 to 60,000 rubles. That's quite a lot for a teacher, for example, who just wants to help the students. And that's actually meant for express to not for our generation, because I already passed it, but for the next generation. It kills creativity. It doesn't let us to think for ourselves. They're just good praise. That's my point.
So you have one large end exam at the end of your studies, is that correct?
It's not just one exam. You can choose a variety of subjects that you have studied in the school, and that's actually great because, as far as I know, the previous generations had to pass exam on every subject in the school. And right now we can choose, well, 3 is necessary for applying to the university, but I passed 6, yeah. Because I wasn't sure about one university, so and we also need a different subject on the same specialization in different universities. This is also odd. And so, speaking about the steps, I would like to change. Well, first we must cancel EGA and bring back the traditional exams, or invent something better. You know. We also have to redevelop the programs. I can say that our educational plans are based on educational programs from the 60s. If we're speaking about the literature, for example, because as far as I'm concerned, Joseph Stalin invented the current program, literature program, with classics, with Russian classics. What was before it, I don't really know. And we really need the new teachers. So we need more sufficient perks, financial perks, for that we have more sufficient perks that we have now. For example, a young teacher right from the university can get the flat, but he has to work for 3 years somewhere in the village. Working in the village is like it's a real challenge. not every person can do it. Like doctors, teachers are transferred from school, from the university to the current school. They don't know where, but it can be anywhere, basically. What's more, we need to increase the funding because that kind of policy is madness, in my opinion. The government has to support their educational system if they don't want to crash themselves with time. And I guess we need the foreigners. We need to rebuild the system entirely, extracting the foreign experience. Basically, ЕГЭ and 4-year course system in the university, well, bachelor and master's, like on the West. They were dragged from the West, but it doesn't work here like that. Our leaders want to see working. Well, I believe in it. And that's my opinion.
So I wonder if I can get some reaction to what you said so far from Dima or Vlad. Do you hear anything here that you agree with or disagree? Vlad, can you comment? Dima, can you comment?
I'll try, but Anton speaks very fast for me. It's now difficult to to understand everything. But I agree that our education has a lot of problems, and we must to change educational system. But I don't know. But I think that Soviet system was not very good, not very progressive, but there was a lot of good things in previous system of education. And now we lost everything good that we had in educational system, and we didn't create something new. So I think it's, in my opinion, modern educational system in Russia is not effective. It doesn't work.
So I think you understood the gist, the main ideas that Tony was talking about, and I appreciate your comment. And we'll no doubt talk some more about this. So, Vlad, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I missed the part of.
And so I wonder if you have any anything to add. Tony was talking about the two biggest problems with the educational system as he sees it are this loss of federal or loss of government funding, I should say, for the universities, which makes the requires the universities to be self-supporting, and that means commercial institutions. Did I get that right, Tony?
Yes, it is so, because we didn't have much budget places. They are decreasing from year to year. For example, on my department, we had only 6 budget places. That means that these students, me included, are educated for free from the federal budget. And the rest, somewhere around 60 people, are studying there for their own money.
And so, Vlad, can you, what do you think of that? Have you any experience with what Tony's talking about?
I think Tony is right. I agree with him because it's really existing problems of Russian system of education. It's very sad, but we really need to change, and our reform is not effective still.
What are you saying about these two changes? For example, the funding during Soviet times, funding was not a problem.
Yes.
And during Soviet times, there was no And so are you saying that it was better in Soviet times?
Of course, much better.
Had different standards.
Different standards.
Different standards, but it was another country, another economic system, totally.
Well, in some, you know, in the United States, for example, and I'm speaking of pre-university education, but education in the United States is a governmental responsibility. That there are private schools, but local and state governments pay for education, and there are also public universities which are subsidized by the state governments. Students still pay for their education, but public universities are supposed to be less expensive than private universities.
They still are.
Still are, yeah.
And I can give some example numbers. So our campus at the University of Texas gets about 21% of its budget from the state.
How much?
So our 21%.
21%.
So our total budget is about $300 million, and we get 21% from the state. We used to get 55%. So just 10 years ago, we got 55% of our budget from the state. So we have really had to charge students more money to take courses. So if you are a Texas resident, if you are born in or living in the state of Texas and you come to University of Texas at Arlington for one course, one 3-credit course, you will pay $1,100.
And if you're an out-of-state student?
And if you're an out-of-state student, that course costs $2,800. So if you are from Oklahoma and you come here, or Oklahoma's a bad example, from Kansas or Iowa, where Professor Marston is, and come to UTA, you pay $2,800 for your course. Now at Drake University, where Professor Marston is, Professor Marston, do you know roughly the prices there?
Not per course, but I know that per year we're talking about $25,000 for a full-time student.
Well, that's interesting. So, I also have no idea of what the courses at my college cost. But I'm really pleased to see that a provost can someone in the provost's office knows those numbers like that. Yeah, that's good.
I practice.
That's how come you're a provost and I'm an instructor.
No.
But I want to say, I do want to say that the governor of Texas, the governor of Texas has proposed a $10,000 bachelor's degree, $10,000 degree. a $10,000 degree, that a student should be able to get a basic university level education for $10,000, and there's a lot of skepticism about whether or not that's conceivable or realistic.
Where is better conditions, in state universities or private?
Sorry, could you ask that again?
Where is better conditions for study, in state universities or private?
State or private? It depends. It depends. There are state universities, public universities, who rank in the top 10% of American institutions of higher education. And then there are private universities that don't. You know, so it depends on the quality of the university. You know, the most prestigious universities are Harvard and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but Princeton, which is Rutgers, which is Rutgers is a public university. Somebody correct me. Is that right?
Right.
So Rutgers is a public university and is very, very highly regarded.
I will tell you, there's a private school in Fort Worth called TCU, Texas Christian University, that costs $50,000 a year. And the reason I know this is my daughter applied to go to school there, but we could never afford to send her there. We would have to get loans or you know, some stipendi to let her go to school there. And they consider themselves to be in the middle, you know, not too expensive. There are private universities that are much more expensive in Texas. And if you go to this campus, right, so if you go to tcu.edu, you can see this beautiful campus. It's just, the campus is a work of art. So I think, Vlad, you asked the question, where were the better conditions? Mm-hmm. You feel like you are in heaven when you are on the TCU campus. The buildings are gorgeous, and you know, it's a work of art. And they are very proud, for example, that there are flowers in every flower bed all year round. Even when there's snow on the ground, they will have beautiful flowers. So you know, it's a very, very privileged place to go to school. But my daughter saw it, and we took the tour because she was applying to colleges. And she said, you know, it's very beautiful and it's very nice and it's a good academic institution, but she didn't really feel at home in that setting. So she will not go to college there, which is a relief, you know, given the cost. But it was a very interesting experience to go to a college and think about, what would I do today, 30 years later, if I had to pick a college and to take a tour and to sit in a classroom and be a freshman again.
There are a couple interesting observations in the chat. First, Anton says, is it true that students just write an essay during the application? And I'd like for us to address that. And second, Vlad says, I hear that in universities like Harvard, you mostly pay for the name and future job possibilities, but not education. It's a good point.
Good question.
Both good questions. So
I can tell you about the application process.
Well, I'm not surprised.
So you fill out an entire application to go to university, and it will differ depending on the university that you want to apply to. But in Texas, we have something called the Common App. So you can go to www.applytexas.org, and you can apply for, I think, nearly any college in the state of Texas. So they will ask you the same information: your name, where you live, what high schools you went to. Your high schools will have to send transcripts so that we can see you are a bona fide high school graduate and what your grades are. You'll have to send the test scores, right? Your SAT or ACT test scores have to come to us. And then there's some other documents you have to put in relative to your health even. So there's a particular vaccine that you have to get now in the state of Texas before you can be a college student, the meningitis vaccine, and you have to provide a document that you've had this vaccine. So there are many different types of pieces of information that you give to us, and then we decide whether to apply to admit you as a student. And some colleges do ask you to write an essay, but they are the least popular with all of the students. Some students will not apply to a college if you have to write an essay. Now, my daughter had to write an essay, and this was a big event for weeks. We had to read the drafts and edit, and read the drafts and edit, because it's a very important essay. Sometimes, all other things being equal, you have the same grades and the same test scores as many other students. If you write a very good essay, you may get admitted to the college, and the other students would not get admitted. So it's an important part, but students don't like it. They would rather just give the biographical information and go from there. So I will tell you in the end that my daughter chose to go to Texas Tech. So she will go to college starting in the fall out in Lubbock, Texas, which is 300 miles out in West Texas, out in the, it's a very Texas part of Texas where they have sand and cactuses and cattle. But that was the school that she finally chose. And it's less expensive than TCU, Slava Bogu. Professor Lear or Marston, were you going to talk about Harvard the name or Harvard the education?
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point, and I think in part it's true that being a Harvard graduate is prestigious, and it may help you get your first job. But as far as your second job is concerned, or your career, I think that your record on the first job is far more important than that. Now, there are you know, people. I think of the 9 Supreme Court justices in the United States, 4 of them are graduates of the Harvard Law School. Very unusual. But schools like I don't know. I'm sort of stumbling. I think that the education is good, but the cachet, the name, is also something that's not that carries some weight. That carries some weight in the marketplace.
I would also make a distinction between undergraduate education and graduate work.
Mm-hmm.
If you have only, and for example, if you go to a college that is not part of a university, then that would be a liberal arts college where you get a general education. And then if you go to a university, you're going to have more choices about what you do, but everyone has the possibility of some specialization. There are common courses that you take usually during your first 2 years. And then you choose a major, which is a major field of study. And that would be more like if you decide you're going to follow a law program. In this country, you don't get an undergraduate law degree. You have to go to graduate school to get a law degree, and then you have to pass an exam when you finish that. I have a friend who's getting ready to take the bar exam in order to be able to be licensed as an attorney. But that's a graduate program, not an undergraduate program. Oh, everybody taking bribes. I need to hear about this, and so I'm going to be quiet now. But I will point out that, Dima, what you posted there is in Russian, which might be obvious to you, but I have no idea what it says.
I can try to explain. It's news that in Omsk State Technical University was arrested for bribery. A teacher who is 74 years old, and he takes money from students for exams without really passing of exams. So students just pay. It's a situation about Anton said that students just pay money to the teacher and don't pass exams. So he received money from students 34 times for 2 years. It's a real Russian education.
I see. So, and is this big news or is it old news?
It's new, so I just find it. I just find it in internet.
If in this country, it is likely that if you were 74 years old, you would be retired.
So it's impossible. It's impossible to work as a teacher for such old persons in United States.
It's not impossible, but it's not common. Unless you are a tenured faculty teaching, who have been teaching for years. Okay, so
is somebody typing right now? The sound is very. Anton, are you typing?
Yes.
If you're typing, could you turn off your microphone? It's picking up.
Sorry.
Much better. Okay. Much better. Thanks.
So yes, we have some dinosaurs. I'm approaching dinosaur hood myself.
No.
But I like to think of myself as a wise woman, not a dinosaur.
You have dinosaurs, and you have a spring chicken.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent.
Spring chicken. And I would think of Professor Marston as a spring chicken.
Oh, you're too kind.
She's just beginning. She's just
I
beginning.
think I might be about a year younger than you. So that makes you a summer chicken then, huh?
That's me. That's me.
And when we have multiple spring chickens, is that a flock? Is that a what is the collective noun?
Spring chicken, a gaggle.
A gaggle.
Or is it friars?
Ah, yes.
Well, let's see. Where did we've had Anton's comments, which are Anton very well thought out. The business about funding and the business and the important question of the national exam, and from that we looked at admissions standards and the difference between public and private education. Very good discussion. Very good discussion. Who else is prepared to comment? Who else is prepared to comment? Dima or Vlad? Either of you? Vlad, are you there? Dima?
Oh, I'm here.
Vlad, would you like to comment on changes that you would like to see in the Russian educational system?
Yes, I think yes. Anton paid attention on some global issues on the level of government. I would like to note some more local issues.
Okay.
For example, of my academy.
Okay.
I think the problem number one is still both private universities and state universities is power distance. I think it's one of the worst things in education process, because administration, for example, administration of our academy, absolutely not interesting in students' life. They don't care about opinion of students. And there's always big power distance. For example, if you have some advices, some suggestions about how to improve things in teaching, makes conditions better, how to make life in universities more interesting, make some activities, students' club, to improve interaction between teachers and students. It's all about power distance, because administration doesn't care about what do you think about, and they will never listen to you. because they only take a part in events which profitable for him, for them, and they solve only questions which connect with money and self-benefit. That's a really big problem, and that's why many of students so passive and speciality, because if administration doesn't care about, for example, some extracurricular activities, and students doesn't care too about it. So because it will much easier to make something, to organize some activities out of the university. And another problem, to my point of view, it's a very important problem too, that students can't choose the classes and subjects. I have a friend from St. Petersburg, and I heard that there's one university where you can partly change and choose your classes, but in general you can't. I understand that we must learn some fundamental discipline. For example, if I'm a lawyer, of course I should know some basic knowledge about law, but I prefer to manage my life by myself. For example, on the law department, we study first 3 years we study general issues about law, and next 2 years we should change your specialty. For example, law students, criminal students, administrative students, or tax students. This year I'm on fourth course. I choose civil law, but this year I must to learn documents in criminal law. But I choose civil law. Why should I learn criminal law? That's kind of strange. And if you will ask why should I study it, everybody will say to you, just in case. You should know it just in case. That's the problem. Also, I can say about problems about relations between students and teachers, but in general it's the same equation. It's all about power difference, and there is still some problems about teaching methods, because some professors still using very antiquated methods of study. So briefly, that's my point about problems.
Good points. Good. Thank you, Vlad. Those are good points. There's a phrase in English. I put it in the chat. It's called "our way or the highway." Our way or the highway, which means do it the way we say, or get on the highway, leave. That's a kind of extreme example. You say teachers are using antiquated methods of instruction. Can you give us an example? Can you give us an example of an antiquated method and your suggestion for what you would like to replace it with?
To my opinion, the antiquated method, it's like when I'm sleeping on the classes, and it's when it's very bored. For example, for example, when talking about lectures, some of professors just stand and reading all the time, during the whole time, 1.5 hours, just reading.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's
the same lecture that he or she
yes.
has been giving for 20 years.
Yes, it's remind me. I don't know. The comprehension in the Soviet Party, something like, you know.
Okay. And how about a new method, a modern method, for example? What would like?
First of all, I think that modern teachers, modern professors should use the media, new technologies like you know, presentations, some video materials.
Right.
They should be more active to comment, to show students not only theory, but to explain any questions from point of view practice, how it works in real life. In my opinion, that's most important issue.
Good point.
So, any questions?
Well, those are good points. Those are very good points.
I have a question about a lecture class. Would this be a large class? How many people would be in it?
It depends. Of course, it depends of course of. But in general, it's about. I think it's about maybe 80 people.
80 people. Okay. So.
But sometimes it can be 15 or 100. Depends on time or of course speciality of students. Because, for example, we have the most amount of students is civil law students.
So you're a fourth-year student, is that right?
Yeah.
So do you have any large lecture classes with, like, civil law courses with 80 students in them?
We have some subjects with criminal students, and at this time we have a lecture in a big classes. It's about 80, 90 people, and we have classes only with civil law students. We have two groups of civil law students. It's about 45 people.
And in a large university like Professor Smith, oftentimes for a large lecture class like this, an undergraduate lecture, there might be graduate assistants who are more accessible to the students than the professor. Isn't that right, Professor Smith?
Yeah, so we would call them GTAs, graduate teaching assistants, and we don't have that problem in Russian, unfortunately. So if Professor Lero or I teach a class, maybe if we're lucky, we'll get 25. So we don't tend to have GTAs, but in many areas like political science or history or the sciences, there'll be a large lecture class with at least 100, maybe 200 or 300 in it, but you never interact oftentimes with the faculty member. You might interact with a GTA, who's a graduate student who will help with student issues and help correct papers and be an assistant to the faculty member. And it's very nice if you teach a large class to have a GTA or two who can help with the work, but I have hardly ever had them in my career. Professor Lero, have you ever been blessed with GTAs?
Well, there were a few semesters when I had a couple large classes going at the same time, and I would hire and pay for my own GTAs, which was not quite legal,
but it worked.
But it worked, and justified it as we treated it as tutoring. When I worked for Drake University, we had a very unique system there involving, it was language classes, but we had in addition to the faculty member, we had a native speaker, a student, who would work with the students in the role of a coach or a mentor, but mentor not in the Russian sense. And that was a very successful system involving a faculty member and a student who would meet with the student several times a week and practice speaking and conversation and that sort of, and conduct exercises.
And I was the one who designed that program, and I will tell you, it is rare. It is not what usually happens, because in the common view of professors, students don't know anything, even if they're native speakers.
Well,
and so I ran a program like that for 10 years at Drake, and whenever I went to a conference to talk about it, that was the first reaction that people had. Oh, I don't think students should be learning from students, they said, which I thought was a moot point. Students were learning from native speakers and a linguist who was the professor.
It was a very successful model.
Usually, our thought here is in the United States, by the time you get to an upper division course, right? So when you say you're a third-year student or fourth-year student, in most cases we assume your classes get smaller. So, you know, a third-year language student or a third-year political science student at the undergraduate level, I think, sees fewer big classes, right? At that point, sometimes we use the word seminar to talk about a smaller group, and maybe we sit around a table. And those classes are very pleasant for faculty members, because at that point you're a major, right? Not just that you have a major, but you are a major. You are specializing.
And that would be like, Vlad, your experience in civil law.
Yeah.
It would be if you only had civil law courses and weren't required to take those pesky criminal law courses, and you would have a small group. And Tony, I see your comment that seminars aren't really successful and that you prefer practice. Quite often in a seminar, which might have a dozen students or up to 20 maybe, practice what you get. It's a much more interactive class.
Vlad, those are good comments, and the discussion is good. Dima, are you there? Dima, we still have time to have you make a presentation if you wish. No Dima?
Oh,
Here we are. Okay. Dima, we've heard from Anton about global educational issues, Vlad about some local issues. How about yourself? What would you change?
Educational system.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very difficult because I think practically all system must be changed. So I think that if the system is not effective, because I wrote that the purpose of most of students is not to receive knowledge from the education, but they want to receive documents about education.
Right.
So diplomas, certificates, and something else. And so they are not interested to receive knowledge. They pay money in private universities, not for knowledge, for good knowledge, but for diploma, because sometimes it's much more easy to receive document about education in private university or institute than in state university, because in Russia state universities are more prestigious than private. So this point must be changed. So students must study for knowledge, for profession. They must be professionals after graduating the university. But in reality, a lot of students want to receive documents, and they say it doesn't matter in real life what you studied in university. And sometimes they are right, because very often you study work and you see that your education doesn't help to you, it doesn't work in reality. So it's a very big problem, in my opinion.
So you would completely change the system?
Yes, I think yes, it's necessary.
Is there anything about the present system that you would keep?
So I think that not the system is bad. It's probably not such bad system as it seems, but purposes of students, of teacher, they don't connect it with purpose of educational system. So teachers very often want to just to earn money. It doesn't matter for them how to receive money as a salary in university or from students. Different there are different kinds of corruption, bribery, so on. Not just to take money for exams, but for example to study certain students for money, for example. So the teacher says, you are not very good students, I will help you to be much more, but to become a better student. So you will pay me some money and I will teach only you. A lot of problems we have. So because in my opinion, purposes or goals of students and teachers don't connect with educational system because educational system must prepare professionals in any spheres, lawyers, technicals, teachers, it doesn't matter. But a lot of people want to receive documents, and a lot of teachers wants to receive money. It's not it must be, but it's not main goal. It's not main. It's not first goal. You must study in university because you want to be a good professional, a good specialist, not for diploma, in my opinion.
So last year we learned about the character in the comedy show Nasha Russia, Snezhana Denisovna, right?
Yes.
Could one of you, Vlad or Tony, explain a little bit about this character for Professor Marston?
Well, she's a stereotype Russian teacher who takes money from his students for some non-educational aims. For example, she wants to go to the holiday somewhere on the islands, like Canarians or Caribbean islands, something like that. Because as far as I got it, she's teaching in the private school, and the kids and their parents are rich. So to somehow get over with her life, she's taking bribes, and that's it.
And all with lots of humor and laughs, right? Because it's a very funny show.
Somehow I don't watch it anymore. I don't find it funny anymore.
Ah, in some ways, it's like a show called Little Britain, but it's got some features of Saturday Night Live in it too, I think.
Localized for Russians, because it was made by Russians for Russians.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's got skits. So Saturday Night Live is known for its skits with recurring characters. So that feature is somewhat similar.
Yes, but can I add something?
Please.
about this problem? I think that another part of problem is that a lot of persons think that it's better to give bribes than to really work hard to study hard. And parents of some students and pupils in school create these situations because they go to teachers and to director and says, I know that he is not very good student, but can you help him to graduate university, and I can buy something for the university or for the school, for example, computers and something else. So it's people create these problems by themselves.
So, I think that as an American, I'm always too shocked to hear about this level of corruption. But I know that there is some corruption in the American educational system, but it's more subtle. It's the kind that you were just speaking of. It's my kid's dumb, but I'm going to give you a computer lab. So we have teachers in our institutions that are not well paid either, but I don't have much of a way to compare what a teacher makes with that salary in rubles. Can anyone enlighten me about that? Okay, and so can we talk about 128 American dollars per month? I get that. How much would a family of 4 spend on food per month? And what are lodging experience and expenses and transportation? Those are the kinds of things that I need to know in order to be able to tell how really starving your professors are. So 25,000 rubles. And so you're talking 4,000 rubles income per month and 25,000 rubles outgo or expenses. Okay, so I might, if I worked, I might be able to pay my apartment's rent with the salary that I earned, but everything else, all my other expenses, I would have to have some other income. Do I understand that right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the case if I do the math as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty pitiful. And so that I know that there are K through 12 teachers who do not make enough money, who make so little money that they qualify for government assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And that might put them in that situation that you talk about. But that certainly sounds like a dire situation, very bad. And I wanted to jump back just a minute to another comment that I had about the practical experience problems. For American students getting practical experience so that they can actually get a job when they finish their university degree, that's a big problem too. At Drake now, their faculty are encouraged and sometimes subsidized to arrange joint research projects for students, something involving field work that serves as practical experience. And Drake has added a J term that is about a 5-week course between semesters where there are opportunities to do field work and practical experience. And so I don't know whether government assistance in the United States is a mockery or not. I think there are problems with it, but I don't know. I know there are lots of non-governmental charities who help people who are the working poor, we call that. And I see we're almost at the end of our time. And
it's the end of our time.
I love this discussion that we've had today. Everybody has made a huge contribution, and I, for one, feel quite enlightened by all this, and I thank you for helping me get the big picture here.
And I think even those of us who have been in Russia learned something today as well, so thank you. Very, very informative. Well, have a good week, everybody, and you will see your assignments, and we will be reading your writing in the blog. So have a good week.
Yes, I'm waiting for your comments, all of us.
Yes, I will certainly write comments in the next couple of days, and so don't give up on me. I believe that I am doing a lot of thinking about what you've written, and I really enjoyed this discussion today, and for me, it makes a big difference if you can write before you come to class. My experience as a language teacher tells me that it helps you collect your ideas together, and then you can expand them, and you don't have to search for words so much. But in addition to this, what you've written is very thought-provoking for me, and that's the phase I'm in. You have provoked my thought, and when it settles a bit more, I'll write some responses. But I do appreciate your efforts. So have a great week. Enjoy yourself. I hope everything is better than just plain normalness.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a nice week.
Professor Marcel, we will see you in about 30 minutes.
30.
I will be back. Thank you. I loved this discussion. I thought
This was good. This is good today. Well done. Well done.
I learned things interesting.
See you.